Radio on. Berlin.
Checking.
Checking sound. Sound checking.
I guess we can call this Radio on Mum.
Right, Radio on Mum.
Here I am with my mum in the kitchen where all the best interviews start, all the best stories start. And we were just talking about when you were younger.
How things are different now.
Yeah. You were born in Malta, and then you and Mum and Grandad came over.
On the boat.
On the boat, yeah. Which
Must have been a cargo boat of some sort, I would think.
What year?
Or it might have been a troops type boat, because I can remember the men were separate from the women.
Yeah. But you remember soldiers?
I can remember...
Uniforms?
Yeah, I can remember uniforms. And I can remember going up to like an opening where they gave me soup. I remember taking the soup.
How old were you then?
I could have only been about 4.
So what year would that have been? It was after the war, huh?
47, 48.
So about 3 years after.
Yeah.
So there were no German submarines or anything like that, or U-boats trying to sink the convoy or anything?
Well, yeah, I mean, they had to be careful, I think, just the same. But that would have been the second time we came over, because I think my mother came over because my dad was posted in Portsmouth. They lived in Portsmouth for a while.
On the south coast of the UK, yeah.
It must have been about 10 months when we first came over, but of course I don't remember any of that.
But you were born in 47, is that right?
43.
43, sorry.
43.
I'm making you younger, Mum.
Yeah, I wish.
Oh, but you didn't, you came over to the UK and then you settled in Sheffield.
We lived in one room in my dad's sister's house. We had a room upstairs that we used to stay in, and I wasn't allowed to play or anything.
Why?
Because I made a noise.
Oh, because they had kids as well, or because it was a one-room place?
We only one room. I mean, you didn't have indoor bathrooms and stuff like that in those days. You had to wash in a bucket or whatever. It's awful when you think back.
But that was in Sheffield then, because you came to Liverpool
Sheffield,
first.
Yeah,
and
Hillsborough. Was in Hillsborough then. But we moved a lot of times. We moved to another of his cousins, I think, and they had 5 boys there.
Wow, living in one room or?
No, they had the house, and we were living, I don't know how we were living then, a couple of rooms maybe, for a while.
So you went to school?
I started school when I was 4, as soon as we came to England, so that I could pick up on the language more. And I remember I got on with the nun that taught me, because she was called Mary Rose, like me.
And this was a Catholic nun school? Yeah.
No, it was a Catholic school.
So it was
which
run
by
by
nuns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were friendly,
Yeah.
but this particular nun was friendly, huh?
Yeah, she was my form mistress, I suppose, what you would call now. But all I can remember is I could sit on the rocking horse, and I used to sit on the rocking horse most of the day, just rocking up and down.
Well, but you were about 4 years old then?
I was 4 when I started, yeah. But then I ran away from school, and it was playtime. I couldn't have been there very long because my mother was really angry, but I managed to cross a main road, though in those days there wouldn't have been a lot of traffic. And I seem to think that I asked somebody to show me across the road, but I can't think why they would have just left me. So in those days they looked after children, didn't they? It would have been unusual to see a youngster walk in.
Why did you run away from school then, or why did you head
Didn't
for
like
home?
it.
Well, was it something
I
that
thought I'd
day
go home,
or
so
something?
I went home.
Oh.
I went home. It wasn't far. We didn't live too far away from the school. So I went home.
And your mum, because Nan...
And then my mother took me back to school.
Oh.
And after that, they locked the gates so as we couldn't get out. Except we jumped the wall. I can remember once, my friend, I can still remember, she was called Avril Oxley, and we shared a boyfriend who was called Michael Oxley. Wasn't a brother or anything, it just happened to be the same name. And he lived up the road. And we jumped the wall, the three of us, and went over to his house and played around. We came back, but we were a bit late, so we got into trouble again.
What was your mum like?
Oh, you wouldn't. My mother was feisty. Couldn't do anything wrong. I wouldn't dare do anything wrong, really, but it's just what children do, don't they? They think I can go home and go home.
And she wanted you to speak English, didn't she? That's right.
Oh, she wouldn't let me speak Maltese.
Yeah.
Even when I was in Malta, I wasn't allowed. She she said that I used to talk to my cousins in Maltese only when she wasn't there, because if she was there, she'd give me a good hiding, which I frequently got. And then we moved to a place, had a couple of rooms at Crooksmore Road, I remember it was.
That was in Sheffield as well?
In Sheffield. And the house belonged to an old man who also always seemed to have his feet in water. I can still see him now. My mother used to say, he must have had Epsom salts or something in the water. My mother said his feet was always really, really white and really soft.
Did he own the house then, or?
He must have done. Either that or he rented it and rented part of it out. And it was while we were there that we decided to buy a house. Or my mother did.
How old were you then?
Then I must have been about, I would think I was about 7, I would think then. Funny enough, I've never gone into it. It'd be interesting to know when we bought the house. I think I was about 7. That was the Western Road house.
And you were in the same school, presumably?
Well, I had to, when we kept moving, I kept moving from St Joe's, the Sacred Heart, which was the first school I went to. Then I went to St Joseph's because we moved house, and then I went back to the Sacred Heart because we moved house again. And then when I was at Crooksmore Road, we were back at St Joseph's again. So it was 2 Catholic schools, but yeah. So when I was at Western Road, when she bought the house, I used to walk to school. That was, quite a walk really to school. It was all downhill.
Leaving space for memories here, because I imagine that you're seeing pictures in your head
back,
or films or something.
It's how your life goes on, and you think, gosh, we were there so many years, really.
And Grandad, your dad was working.
Yeah. He used to walk to work and back.
Oh.
And that was a long way. It was like, because he used to work in the steelworks. We went there once to look around, and it was so hot. Everything was, it was just white steel heat. It's just unbelievable.
So how come you visited his work, or?
Yeah, we went round.
Was it
to have a look?
Yeah.
Because my cousin Eddie came over, so I must have been about 11 or 12 maybe. couldn't have been that age because I was still at the St Joseph's. And at 11 I went to Notre Dame. But anyway, he came over to live with my mum in England. That's when he met Ivy.
That's your Uncle Eddie.
Yeah, it must have been much earlier because I was only about 9 when I was bridesmaids to them. So it must have been about 9 then when he came over.
And Grandad, so Grandad was working the steelworks.
Yeah.
And you said that that the money that you earned went
about £5 a week.
Yeah. And he gave it to your mum.
Yeah, he always used to come in a sealed packet. Because it used to be cash in those days, not salaries.
And he had to give it
weekly.
He had to give it to your mum.
Yeah, before it was opened.
Why
then
did
she'd give him a bit back.
Okay, so she controlled things.
She had to, really. When I thought back, when you know more, when you're a child, it doesn't matter, does it? But she had to, because he would have just spent it all.
What would he spend it on then?
Beer. Gambling. The bookies were next door to the pub. So he'd be in the bookies, then he'd go to the pub, and then he'd go back to the bookies. My mother used to work at odd times, doing cleaning for people and that, to earn a bit more money.
But that was very different, as you've said before, from the life that she had in Malta.
Oh yeah, because she was treated like a queen when she was in Malta, when her mother was alive. It's really funny, because if you talk to my Auntie Lily and my mother, they had 2 different lives. My Auntie Lily was always cleaning and doing the washing up and cooking and goodness knows what else. My mother used to just wander around in all these nice clothes and things.
Why was that then?
Well, because she used to be the attraction in the bar, didn't she?
Because they had a bar?
They had a bar.
In Valletta?
Which my Auntie Stella ran. Because, I mean, my mother was one of 18 children originally. I mean,
18? That's so many.
There was, the only ones I remember are Resta, who was our brother, who used to live down the road. There was my Auntie Stella, my Auntie Lily, and another auntie. But when we came to England, we had a telegram to say that she'd been murdered.
Oh God.
Somebody had attacked her in the street, and she always used to carry her money around with her in a bag. And she got 2 bags with her, and they thought they'd took the money. They killed her and thought they'd took the money, but they hadn't. They'd left it. She'd still got the money with her.
God. That was in Malta? In Valletta, presumably.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
Very unusual. I never knew what happened. But they don't tell children, do they? But I remember getting the news, them getting the news. Everybody being upset. But I don't remember anybody else that was related. So the others must have died quite young. And then she had another brother that had something went wrong with his leg, I think. And he died as a teenager.
So Nan had roughly how many brothers and how many sisters?
I don't know.
No, hard to say. Were there more?
There were 18 in the family.
Yeah, but there were more
children.
Sisters than brothers, or?
I would think there must have been more sisters, because there was only Uncle Oresta when I was born.
We were talking about how things have changed. Talking about this, and you were talking about Grandad and how he used to go in the bars and things.
Oh yeah.
And these.
But the older men did it, especially Sunday lunchtime. Sunday lunchtime.
After church, because presumably Grandad would go to church.
No, he didn't go to church because he was a non-Catholic.
Okay, that's interesting news.
But he always wanted to be a Catholic. He said, "I'll be a Catholic before I die." And he used to, when the priest, in those days, the priest used to come round. And And he'd always have a whiskey or something for the priest.
Yeah.
He used to get on with the priest.
Do you remember the name of the priest?
No.
So then in the
There's a few of them.
afternoons on Sundays, he'd go to...
Well, while the women were cooking,
Yeah.
the men would go to the pub.
Yeah.
And they'd have strippers, I think, like a show or something.
So these were working men's clubs, as they were known then, in
they would have
Yorkshire
been, yeah.
or in the north.
But things were different then because men used to go in the bar. Women weren't really allowed in pubs. If you were a decent woman, you wouldn't be seen dead in a pub. Or you would go in the lounge and sit in the lounge and have a snowball or whatever. But the men would be at the bar. You wouldn't even look at the bar. You wouldn't even see the bar. Certainly children weren't allowed in the pubs anyway. You'd have to stand outside and wait for your parents coming out.
Wow.
Don't know when all that changed. Used to wait for hours sometimes.
What would you do outside the bars then? You'd be with your friends or
Yeah, there
the other
would be
kids?
loads of other children because all the children were outside. It used to be a fun time sometimes. You'd just play in there. Because I mean, there wasn't traffic and they were just working class people. There weren't much badness going on like there is now. I mean, you wouldn't trust children now, but then children used to be able to walk the streets and it's sad really, because we're supposed to have progressed and we haven't really.
How long would Grandad stay in the bar then on a Sunday?
As long as the money lasted.
Okay.
And then he'd come home. That was it. If he had, if he won on the horses or whatever he betted on, then he'd spend the money on us. It would always be spent on other people. But as long as he, and then he'd spend it all. He wouldn't think that save it for another day. No. He'd either gamble it, but if he had enough, he would just buy us things. Yeah. And then they used to row I remembered that he'd be really happy if he'd won, but if he lost all his money, he wasn't very happy then. He would just look sad. And of course he smoked as well, like they all did. My mother didn't smoke.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? She never did.
I never saw my mother smoke, no.
Yeah.
I mean, whether she did when she was young.
Did she find it really difficult when he was smoking, or
No,
it was just accepted, like a lot of things then?
because the men did.
Yeah.
Women didn't much.
So there's a big difference
did.
between men and women somehow in certain aspects.
Women were supposed to be at home and men were out, you know. They did all the work and the women kept the house.
And your mum had friends that would come round, presumably female friends?
No.
No? Oh.
She didn't have a lot of friends. She had a couple of friends after I'd left home, but she just used to sit at the window and look out the window most of the day, really, when her work was done. She never had friends that sort of came in the house. She'd say hello to the neighbours or something, or maybe looking after their children or something.
But there were a lot of Maltese people living in Sheffield. Or did Nan have contact with?
No, I can't remember anybody else.
Oh.
There was another couple
Oh.
called Tony and Nina who took me out to a restaurant. I think we went over to Manchester or something. They took me out. I don't know why they had to go somewhere, and asked if they could take me. And that was the first time I'd ever been. I had fish and chips.
Oh.
Everybody had fish and chips. It was a fish and chip shop. But I thought that was really posh, because I'd never been in a restaurant.
How old were you then, roughly?
Oh, I would have still been very young.
So about 7
9.
or 8, 9, okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first job?
First job? Oh yeah, worked at Pinder's. It was printers. I started when I was about 17. So I took my O-levels and left.
Ah, you left home?
No.
I know. Left school.
I left school.
Yeah.
Didn't take A-levels.
What was Pinder's? Sorry, I didn't
Printers,
ask.
it was the printers.
Printers, yeah.
True to scale, they used to call it. It was quite a strange thing, because in those days, it was the students that used to come in with their theses or something, their end of year stuff, and have to have it printed out, and it had to be exactly true to scale for some reason. I don't know what it was. Sometimes
Maybe
it was
not architecture or anything, no.
yeah, so it was that sort of thing, and we had to print it on like we used to have this melted stuff that we used to pour over something like a table, I suppose, really, that used to contain it, wait for it to go off, and we had to photograph lots of it, take photographs, and then print things out, and the print used to come on this like a rubber thing that used to roll the ink across, and it would just stick to the lines. And God help you, if you put too much ink on, it would like splinter.
Okay.
And there'd be like little bits sticking out that weren't allowed. And I got the hang of it pretty quickly. So they made me in charge of it.
Oh.
Otherwise we were just in the printing room, putting all this paper through a roller thing, printing off stuff. But I was in charge of the camera, taking the photos and everything. Used to be like 500 photos on the reel. Used to be huge then. So if it went wrong, because you couldn't tell until they developed it all that it had gone wrong.
That's when you first started having money for yourself then?
Yeah. But I had to give it to my mother.
Oh.
And she
controlled everything. She was the bank then for your dad and...
Yeah.
And
I earned, I started off at about £6 a week, so I earned as much as my dad did.
Wow. And he was working in a steelworks. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a really good job, apparently. I stayed there till I was 21.
So that was in Sheffield. Which part of Sheffield was that in?
That was in near the Peace Gardens in Sheffield, in the town.
And this was in the 60s, is that right?
Yeah.
And things had changed by then. Things had started to change.
Oh yeah, because then the Beatles had arrived, hadn't they? When I first heard, I can remember. I mean, I used to go dancing a lot, all the time.
Oh.
First of all, it was youth clubs. I used to go to the youth club, and I had a lot of friends, and we used to walk around in a gang sort of thing. So wherever we wanted to go, everybody would go.
Oh.
All the gang would go. So we used to go to these youth clubs and just dance all night, really. It was lovely.
What kind of dancing was it?
Rock and roll. It was rock and roll.
Was that a nude kind of dance, or? Yeah,
it was the start of it, really, like Elvis and Buddy Holly and all. Yeah.
And you used to go to see bands play. Would there be live music at the dances?
It would always be live. It would always be live music.
Got it. Yeah.
But you would be dancing. You wouldn't be watching them.
Right.
It's very rare that you'd be watching them. It was, in fact, I can say, I think, well, it would have been the Beatles and the Hollies, and that was the first people that were on stage that we saw.
So you saw the Beatles?
But no, I saw the Beatles playing live first, except that you couldn't hear them because the first time I heard about the Beatles was I'd been to a dance or the youth club or something and was waiting to go home on the bus. And my friends turned up and said they'd gone to see the Beatles. And I thought they were men dressed as Beatles because nobody had funny names in those days, you know. It was you were Buddy Holly or Elvis but this was the Beatles. I didn't understand. They said, oh, they're a group, and they played, and there was only about 6 people in the audience.
Wow. Oh.
Because they'd never been heard. I said, there was plenty of room. They said, but they were really good. And then we found out that they were coming to kind of youth clubs that we knew about. So we thought, well, we'll go and see these Beatles, and the gang all got tickets. And before they moved it from there to a bigger place because they'd sold too many tickets or something. So we had to go to this strange place where I'd never been before. And when we got in, there was like tables there and chairs and that. And I thought, well, where are we going to dance around the tables? And anyway, they came on stage. And instead of dancing, people were just standing there screaming. And I couldn't understand it. And then, I couldn't see them. I couldn't hear them. And so we stood on these tables to look over the heads of everyone. and they were, but you really, because the acoustics and everything wasn't the same like, they had the big, what they call them?
Speakers?
Speakers and stuff. But the screaming was so much. And that was the start of it, really.
How many people were there at the time then?
It was crowded. There was
like
a lot of people.
A few hundred or?
We couldn't dance, no, it wouldn't have been. Would have been a couple of hundred maybe.
Okay, yeah. And what did you think of them? You couldn't hear the music?
I couldn't hear them.
What were they dressed?
But they were dressed in smart suits with like jump-up collars and different. They had really shiny hair. That was long.
Okay.
In those days, long. And long was shorter than mine is now. And they were going like this. And their hair was
moving from side to side. Like blocks.
And really shiny, really clean looking. They were really clean. And it was just, I was disappointed. I remember leaving thinking, because we weren't ready for that sort of thing, really. I just wanted to dance, because that's all I wanted to do was dance. I wasn't really bothered about the singing and everything. I like dance music. And of course then they were booked to go to the City Hall in Sheffield, which is the biggest place that they could, really. And I asked, the manager asked if I could go at lunchtime to queue up and get some tickets. So she said yes, so I was getting a ticket for me and Jackie, so 2 tickets. And I started queuing, and it was a long queue right down the road, but I was in the queue. And it just went on for hours. I was there for a couple of hours. I missed going back to work. And suddenly, the manageress came over, and I thought, oh God, I'm going to get into trouble because I've not gone back to work. But I wasn't going to leave my place in the queue. And she came over, she says, can you get me a ticket as well?
Oh, yeah.
Because she'd heard that it was already out that there was queuing around the block for the tickets for the Beatles. Managed to get the tickets. I've still got the tickets that we had. Yeah.
What were they like this time then? Second time
Oh,
you
it was
saw
lovely then because you could hear them, except that people were all screaming, just screaming, which was annoying. But you could hear a bit better because of the, it was in a proper theatre showing really, and you could see them obviously because if people didn't stand up. But yeah, no, that was lovely. A bit different when the I've forgotten his name now.
Buddy Holly? No.
Oh, no, I never saw Buddy Holly live.
But you had a friend who was really famous, became very famous. So.
Oh, yeah. I used to go out with somebody called Humphrey. Don't know what his surname was, but he was a nice chap. And but I only went out with him because I liked Dave Berry.
Oh.
Dave Berry. We used to wear leathers and like slink across the stage, and so I used to go to see him quite a lot, really, in different things. And I really liked him. And that was his best friend. They'd both been to school together. So I kept in with Humphrey because I thought I'd meet Dave Berry. I think I met him once, but other than that, I mean, he was famous as well at the time. But it used to be the same gang going round to different places. It's lovely.
And you could buy records by now, is that right? Or
Yeah.
do you remember having a record player at home?
Dance set it was.
Oh.
A dance set, yeah.
For those who don't know what a dance set is, you actually open up it was a wooden sort of...
It was no, it was...
plastic?
Yeah, it was plastic, I would think, really, but you used to lift up the lid. And then I think I could play like 10 records at a time. So one record would fall on the other record, but wouldn't always, sometimes it would slide and slip, so it wouldn't work all that great when you had 10 records, but some were smaller size, singles were small. Then you had the LPs, which were longer.
But you'd already left home by then, so...
No.
So you,
I was still at home.
So you had the dance set for yourself?
Yeah.
You bought it for yourself?
I probably got it for Christmas or something.
And did Nan, your mum, or your dad, ever listen to the music, or...?
Don't think so.
They'd listen to the radio, presumably?
Because we used to listen to Radio Luxembourg, which was illegal, really.
That was a boat, wasn't it? Or?
No, Radio
Oh, no, it was
Luxembourg.
in broadcasting from...
from Luxembourg. But then we used to listen to Radio Caroline. That was a boat, with Tony Blackman and that. But my dad used to get really mad because I used to turn it on loud to us. And my dad used to want to listen to the news or something and turn it over, and I'd turn it back again. One day he threw it at me. He got really annoyed. Then he bought me a transistor radio, it was called in those days. So I had my own. That was much better. Gosh, when I look back and I can still see the radio that we had. Didn't have telly as such till way after that.
Do you remember the first?
My cousin had the television.
Oh.
We used to go over there because my mother liked seeing Larry the Lamb, I think he was called, or some little children's programme, and my mother loved it. So we used to go over there on Sundays to watch the television. Because you see, in those days, you couldn't really afford a television, but you could hire one and pay it, rent it, I suppose they call it in these days, yeah. But I mean, it was quite expensive even to rent.
Do you remember your first records? The first one you ever bought?
No. I remember borrowing a record from a friend that I really liked, and then we went to give it to her, but then I was married by then.
Ah.
And I left it in the back of the car, and the sun melted it.
Oh, God. What record was it?
Can't remember.
No.
Can't remember. But she was very annoyed.
I can imagine.
I didn't even buy her another one. Yeah.
What happened to the gang then that you hung around with?
They all got married.
Yeah.
My friend Patsy ended up getting married. She had the first baby girl, Helen, and then they went over to live in Canada. I think her husband had a brother that was living in Canada and said it was really good. It was the best thing they ever did. Still hear from her. She always seems to be on holiday. Having a nice retirement now.
And someone else in the gang?
Jackie used to be in the gang, but we fell out early on when we got married. She had a sad marriage, really. Mary used to be in the gang. Still keep in touch with her. She's still in Sheffield. Yeah, well, we've moved so many times, haven't we? So, but they're the only ones really that I keep in touch with now. Don't know what happened to all the boys.
Maybe they're still in the bars.
Well, a lot of them, I know a lot of them passed away.
Yeah.
Because they'd be my age, wouldn't they? Oh, God.
And it was your birthday the other day, your 79th birthday.
My 79th.
Yeah.
Might get to my 80th yet. Had a lovely life, yeah.
How does it feel talking about it? These are really early memories, aren't they?
Yeah, when you think back, it was no worries, really. No worries at all. They're really nice memories.
Yeah, because you came over from Malta and you settled in a new country, and during the 60s seemed to be a very different time, or a change after the war, and then this time where people seem to have a bit more money than they had in the past.
Yeah, you didn't need money as such, really, because you could enjoy yourself without
or
masses
change
of
in
money.
lots of
Everything
things.
was
Like,
cheaper.
right, yeah.
I mean, we had places we could go for no money. And I mean, like now, they go drinking, don't they? In those days, we used to go to the coffee bar, and you'd all meet in the coffee bar and have one coffee all night, and they wouldn't throw you out.
Yeah.
You know. Or you'd go to the park, and you used to have a bandstand, and you'd all sit on the bandstand and yakka all night. And when I used to go to the youth club, my mother wouldn't let me come home on my own. And the youth club man had to take me home, walk home with me. When in my younger days. Yeah.
Thanks.
It's all gone.
So you've been listening to Radio on Mum. This is a show about the changes in your life and that. I mean, it's really fascinating for me to listen because some of the stories I've heard before. I've heard the Beatles stories, of course, but there's more detail now. But for me, it's really interesting to hear about about Grandad and your mum. And these Sundays, you know, and these working men's bars and this kind of world.
Well, when you think on Sundays especially, you know, the shops weren't open. The shops would shut.
Yeah.
Well, the shops would shut Wednesday afternoons, and Saturdays they'd be shut in the afternoons, and all Sunday. So all there was the bars, really.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And now, as you get prepared for whatever you're doing out there, we will probably have another coffee and some cakes and biscuits and stuff like that. Okay. Have a good day wherever you are. We will. Great. How was that?
Amazing, isn't it? What you remember. But you remember all the good things, you don't remember bad things, do you?
Probably best.
Yeah. All the beatings and...
It was nice as we were talking, I could hear the sound of the wind through the tree outside.
Yeah.
And it was making this kind of frequency sort of sound. And then Melita came in, my sister's child, and she's 11, and she was coming in us to the sweet cupboard and giving me thumbs up as she took sweets and biscuits as well. Mum, I'll have to, your microphone, it's on a long lead, so you can go very far, but I'll just going to take your tight-clip mic off. There you go. You know how to take a tight-clip mic off. We're experts these days, watching it all on TV. Thank you, Mum.
You're welcome.
Radio 1 Berlin.
For more information, visit www.radioonberlin.com. Thanks for listening.